If you think January 6th has come and gone, think again. It's become the new 9/11, what the left is going to use against Trump voters for years to come. Plus, QAnon, useful idiot or dangerous leader of a white supremacist cult? CNN brings in star witnesses to prove that the Great Reset is nothing more than a racist conspiracy theory. I wonder what these guys are going to have to say about that. Plus, Fox News, Glenn Beck, and Tucker Carlson, are they really gateways to a white supremacist cult? CNN thinks so. What do you think? All that and more tonight from the editor's desk. Hello everyone, Michael Matt coming to you once again from the offices of the Remnant newspaper. So, the 2020 election is now over, at least for most of us. Donald Trump has left the White House, months ago in fact, and he's now out there promoting conservative candidates for 2022. He's moved on. But have you noticed something kind of strange? CNN, the radical left, the Democrats, they don't seem to want to let him go, do they? In fact, they seem to be more fired up with anti-Trump hate right now than before the election. And they're falling all over themselves over every silly conspiracy theory out there on the web to try to make their point. March 4th, for example. We're all waiting with anticipation for March 4th. Were you waiting for March 4th?
Not really. No.
Pretty exciting stuff. Something big was going to happen. That's all we knew. For months, they were warning us at CNN right up until a few days ago, warning about March 4th. Now, it's come and gone without incident. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. The way that the left, the way that CNN behaves. I mean, it's out of control. March 4th was the day when, according to QAnon, whatever that is, whoever that is he on the left? Is he on the right? Is he black? Is he white? Nobody knows. Is he even a he? Is it a person? Is it a troll? God only knows, So QAnon said that Donald Trump was supposed to use the military option now to seize power or start a new country or become the 19th president. That was one of the big things that was supposed to happen. I'm a bit confused exactly what QAnon was all about. So why don't we let our friends over at CNN explain, because they apparently take him as gospel. Let's check this out.
The March 4th theory actually comes from sovereign citizen beliefs. Now, in the past, we haven't seen such a huge overlap, but in this case, certain QAnon followers have borrowed whole cloth from a belief that the last legitimate president was the 18th president. So this goes back to 1871, and this is the belief that Trump will be actually inaugurated as our 19th president.
Now, of course, to get this done, the evil Donald Trump, the evil racist, white supremacist, misogynist Donald Trump was going to employ 75 million violent Trump supporters who are going to join him in pulling off now this coup d'etat to end all coup d'etats, we were told. Nothing, of course, actually happened since you got to be a real CNN viewer to fall for any of this nonsense. Nobody that I know fell for it, but CNN saw them hiding all over the place. They did weeks worth of shows on this. So tonight, let's just take a look at an example of what's been going on over there, because I know none of you watch CNN. I certainly try to stay away from CNN. But over the past couple of days, we've been looking into what CNN's actually been up to, and it's unbelievable. Right out of the cartoons, right out of the funny pages. Here's an example.
In the aftermath of the attack on the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, investigators are trying to figure out what happened and how they missed the signs. But one group of Americans did not miss the signs. They saw it coming, and they see another violent battle brewing today. All of them tell us that the next alarming date comes this week, Thursday, March 4th, to be exact. QAnon has a new plan for violence and destruction, and they don't let reality get in their way.
Okay, stop the tape. I have a feeling I'm going to be interrupting this one because I saw it before the show, and it really, really outrages me. So we're going to stop the tape here and there and just take a look at what's happening. Now, here's the thing. You can see what they want, right? They want you to be scared. Very scared. Remember? Kind of reminds you of the COVID kickoff, doesn't it? Stay scared, and we'll tell you how to survive. They're up to it again now. And it's going to affect all of us, whether you like it or not. If you're a conservative, if you're a patriot, if you're a Christian America, God help you if you voted for Donald Trump, this is going to affect you. Now, violence and destruction, CNN is telling us, are coming our way. Now, we already lived through a whole ton of it. That doesn't matter. A whole full year of violence and destruction and burning cities all across this country. But no, something new is happening. White supremacist violence and destruction. The worst kind, you see? That's coming. QAnon is what we need to be afraid of now.
They also think that there's going to be this great financial reset, both in our country and around the world, where debts are just going to be forgiven, where if you have a mortgage, you don't owe on it anymore.
Okay, stop it. Stop the tape. See what they're doing here? She's talking about the Great Reset, this poor little waif. If you think the Great Reset is real, in other words, CNN is telling you, then you're part of a dangerous white supremacist QAnon cult. This is according to CNN, and which sort of begs the question. So I guess these guys are also part of the QAnon cult?
Your Royal Highness, Professor Schwab, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I send you my warmest greetings and best wishes on the launch of the Great Reset.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path.
History would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset.
What we will see now is acceleration of those trends, and of course, a unique opportunity to reset our global agenda.
Okay, so let's consult a little more expert testimony from our friends at CNN.
Well, the person that I started talking to anyways that had initially got me into QAnon, he was like, Joe Biden's not even real. Like, that's why he's wearing a mask all the time, because the fake face that he's wearing, the mouth doesn't move correctly when he talks.
And you fell for that? Again, shame on you, CNN. This poor lady has got kids who are going to see this someday. You're exploiting her.
Did you ever know who Q was?
No. Mm-mm.
Jay, I mean, did you understand who was feeding this information and like who the ringleader of it was?
No.
I didn't know that I was in a QAnon group until I got out of it.
Okay, so let's review. You actually don't know who Q is at all. You don't even really know if he is a person. You don't know what the cult is. And what you do know is that you didn't even know you were in the cult.
Do you guys think that there are particular media types, media personalities, who also are a gateway to conspiracy theories and QAnon?
Newsmax. I can remember when Glenn Beck joined Fox News, then people like Tucker Carlson.
Definitely stuff like Fox News, One American News, OAN, stuff like this.
Fox News. And that is a huge part of what's radicalizing people.
Oh, I see. What a weird coincidence. Well, this connects a lot of the dots, doesn't it? Now, okay, so all of CNN's competitors on cable news, in other words, and elsewhere, just happen to be incubators for dangerous white supremacist racist conspiracy cults. I see. Never mind the reality. Never mind that everybody and his brother knows that for conspiracy theorists living in the real world, Fox News is public enemy number one. Fox News is the biggest bunch of sellouts. Fox News is the most obvious example of controlled opposition from the deep state on the internet today, on television today, on cable today.
Show of hands, how many of you today think that we do have a domestic terrorism and or white supremacy problem in this country? All of you.
Do you believe this? Be sure to pick up your $20 coupon for Starbucks for appearing on our show tonight. Because we're basic. Roll the tape.
Just everything happened with Trump and, just his view on the whole thing. And it just really, ignite that fire of white supremacy and racism.
Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. Just everything that happened with Trump, just everything that happened with Trump and just his view on the whole thing. Okay. That clears a lot of things up. Very convincing. Thank you. Let's a bit more here.
My concern is that a lot of the threads that weave a lot of these conspiracies together in the Q world are very thinly veiled white supremacy, very thinly veiled anti-Semitism.
Not even a random scare quote. Just say it, pumpkin.
So I thought I wasn't racist. Being out of it, I have taken it upon myself to have conversations, and I've bought books.
Oh, I see. You've bought books. And now you know you're not a racist because this was before you bought books. So the lesson, those who buy books are not racist. Come to think of it, that's actually true. Better edit the tape there, CNN. The gal just made some sense. Roll the tape.
There's a lot of anger and a lot of confusion. I think it's going to get worse. I worry about a lot of violence.
A lot of violence? Wow, that's super scary. A lot of violence, huh? Wow, even right there in your homeless shelter. Violence, okay.
The uniform message from all of them, people who've been on the inside, is they think it's going to get worse.
And how do these folks from the Jerry Springer show, these experts, how do they know that it's going to get so much worse? Well, these people have their finger on the pulse.
These are people with their finger on the pulse, and they don't think that it's dying down.
CNN dug deep, found some folks who obviously really wanted to be on TV quite badly, called them QAnon experts, and then used them to gaslight their own audience. And I wonder how people who watch this network on a regular basis, I wonder how they feel about that. They must notice that's what happened. That's what CNN does. That's what CNN did with COVID, too. And when their little horror stories for children actually don't pan out, that doesn't matter. It's not a problem. Just move on to the next one. Everybody's going to forget what you did anyway. It's always something new. It's the next thing is the only thing that matters. So you remember, for example, CNN's super spreaders. They had a super spreader frenzy going. Remember they went after Kristi Noem because of the Sturgis motorcycle rally. Super spreader, which turned out to be some company in Germany that was pinging phones of the guys riding the Harleys out there. And then they said, well, it must have been a super spreader, given the number of people who were at Sturgis, given what the CDC has told us, there must have been a super spreader. Now, that was reported by CNN as there was a super spreader, because a company in Germany said there must have been. That's how it works. There wasn't actually a super spreader, but they were that was just part of the game. Night after night, CNN viewers were treated to the super spreader fear-mongering, like this one.
So tonight, the rally in Minnesota, this should be then very easy by your logic. This is the video. This is what we see. There are no masks. There is not social distancing. This is what's been happening at rally after rally. So I would imagine you've told the president that this is wrong, right?
Oh, yeah, no masks. No social distancing. It's wrong. You see, there is right and wrong for the people at CNN. When they say something's wrong, now it's not just insensitive, but it's wrong. There's right and wrong is going against what we say is right. And why was it wrong? Because it was a super spreader. People are going to die. That's CNN. Now, this one is funny. I enjoyed this one because guess what? We were actually at the Bemidji Trump rally super spreader. I was sitting right up there in the press box, right next to the CNN gal, listening to Donald Trump, looking at Mike Lindell from the Pillow Company do their thing. Yeah, it was a fun day. We were right there. You were there, weren't you, Walter? Absolutely. We were there filming this thing. We were at the super spreader in this case. And let's not forget, we hail from flyover land, small town USA. And anybody from a small town can tell you this. If there had been a big COVID outbreak that had actually taken place after that Trump rally, that would have been front page news all over the place. And here locally, it would have been front page every day for months on end, you see, because it's very liberal here in Minnesota. In reality, of course, after the Bemidji super spreader, nothing happened. So did CNN follow up on the Minnesota super spreader that never was? Yeah, no. Of course not. Of course they didn't. They don't care about the truth. This has nothing to do with the truth. It doesn't even have anything to do with the news. It has to do with the agenda, with the narrative of the far left. That's all it is. And this time, friends, which is why we're doing this program tonight, this time the stakes are high. They're coming after us. They got everybody in the world to put their masks on and social distance and behave like crazy people, didn't they? For over a year now. So the stakes in this case are really high. They smeared 75 million Americans as being complicit with January 6th. hanging out with this nut job, planning more violence on March 4th. Of course, we were all involved with that because we're all racist. Even if we don't know we're racist, we need to read books and we'll find out that we are racist and that we are part of this violent, white supremacist, domestic terrorist problem. And here's the thing. Now it's March 6th. Nothing happened. And it's crickets from CNN. They'll follow up. Now, do you see why Donald Trump, among so many others, was calling CNN fake news? Because shouting fire in a crowded theater is fake news. And CNN shouts fire in a crowded theater every single night. And they don't care who suffers because of it. Now, down here in the real world, the January 6th incident did more damage to the MAGA movement, to Donald Trump, than 4 years of Russia hoaxes and the impeachment nonsense combined. You see? No serious people defended January 6th, but we all denounced it. In our case here at Remnant TV, while it was happening, we denounced it. I put this out on January 6th. Now, why? Why did I put this out? Because anybody, any patriotic, Christian, good person, law-abiding citizen could see that what happened on January 6th was dead wrong. The folks who were there, who were destroyed, who were heartbroken by what happened, who never intended to break into the Capitol and do damage and make a fool of Trump and make the whole movement look ridiculous, most people there fall into that category. Everyone messed up who should have stopped the thing too, including the Capitol Police, who actually let half of these guys in that day.
They're going to lock us in.
You can disagree with it, but respect it.
Come on.
Every movement has its lunatic fringe, and every movement should be judged not by its fringe, but by how it reacts to that fringe. And again, every conservative condemned the fringe on January 6th. But the swamp creatures, they can't let this go. They can't let this crisis go to waste. So rather than taking steps to act and behave as responsible citizens, as responsible members of the media, and put this fire out, what are they doing? They're throwing gasoline all over it. Whether you're on the left or the right, you should begin to be concerned by this, because look where it leads. Look what happens when you trigger and gaslight people, especially in the middle of a pandemic. People are strung out enough. CNN has absolutely no concern for the common good. And they represent the other half of the country. They represent the whole Democrat Party. They're the mouthpiece of people like Pelosi and Biden and Schumer and these guys. So it is a concern. It's not just CNN. This is civil war that they're engaging in. They are trying to vilify and criminalize half of the country. You know, and while they made a superstar out of this idiot, no more a Trump voter than George Conway, by the way, they buried the compelling evidence coming out from guys like this right at the front line on January 6th.
Why haven't you called for backup? Where is your backup? This is our damn Capitol building, and y'all are letting it get destroyed on your watch.
Now, what's this poor guy doing? I think his video has about, 3,000 views after all these months. Nobody picked it up. Nobody picked it up. What's he doing? He's reacting to the lunatic fringe minority of at his own rally. He's angry. He's ticked off. And so were the hundreds of thousands of patriots on that mall that day who refused to join in what happened in the Capitol. But the bottom line is that adults, big people, whether in politics or in media, people who care about the common good of their fellow men and of their country would naturally look at this whole sorry situation and say, okay, man, we're in the middle of a pandemic. People were shut down. They lost their jobs. They felt like they lost their vote. They felt like they were disenfranchised. You can have empathy for people even when you disagree with what happened, what they did, some of them, a small fringe of them. So the adults, decent people, we always talk about Christ or chaos. This is the problem. These people have no moral code. They see something bad happen, they pounce on it, they exploit it for their own good, and they hurt everyone in the process. But you know what people would have said 40, 50 years ago, even in media, even more liberal people. They would have said, okay, we get it. Let's get serious here. with the mail-in ballot talk that was going on, with the vote harvesting, the voting machines, talk about foreign countries, Germany and other countries actually counting our votes. A lot of things were being said in the media that we hadn't heard before. Lots of people didn't know what was going on. You know, because it wasn't just conservatives on the right who were concerned about what's happened to this country. Powerful folks on the left were concerned too, and for years now. You'll remember this gal.
You can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
So why is it not extended to the folks on the right who had the same concerns as Hillary Clinton, that folks are messing with the system? So why are you, lefties, Pelosi, CNN, why are you using this as a political football? As if there were no pre-existing concerns on both sides now over voter fraud. Of course there was. What are you doing? You trying to cover up for the fact that y'all spent 4 years contesting and denying the legitimacy of Donald Trump's 2016 election? Is that what you're doing? Because that's what it looks like. And as I say to all folks watching this show, this is already serious. It's going to get even more serious because they're not backing down. They got something here, and they're going to play it all the way to the end. And we're seeing it. We are like the point of the spear here in Minnesota, where we're all bracing for the Derek Chauvin trial, the guy who knelt on George Floyd's neck. And everyone from our governor, the insufferable Tim Walz, on down, is now suddenly citing January 6th as the major consideration we must factor in for why we need to lock down our city and encircle the Hennepin County courthouse with razor wire like they got going on out in D.C. during the run-up now to this trial, which starts this coming Monday. We're actually worried. Again, in America, a trial is something to be very afraid of in the present climate because tensions are so tight. Race wars are so serious. Race wars which are being stoked by folks like those running CNN. And now it seems like every day here in Minneapolis, every story that the Star Tribune newspaper prints about Minneapolis in fear of what's going to happen now during this trial, every story has to include references to January 6th and to white Christian terrorism. It's unbelievable. They're doing this with a straight face, even though all of us here in Minnesota sat and watched our city burn 6 months prior to January 6th. What does January 6th have to do with what happened last summer? Nothing is the answer. And yet they keep bringing it up. They keep bringing it up. We sat here. We saw violence. We saw death. We saw dead kids. We saw unbelievable mayhem and terror, which had nothing to do with white supremacism. You know? But they have to make it about white supremacism now. They have to make it about racism so that every crisis, every situation that comes along can be used for political gain. And the reality is we all condemned what happened to George Floyd. You know? I know he was a felon. He was unemployed because of COVID, by the way, because of the lockdowns. He fell off the wagon. He got himself in all sorts of trouble. He was behaving in a way that someone had to call 911 on him. There's a lot to that, more to that story. But nevertheless, when we all saw what happened to the guy, I tweeted this out. Because as a Christian, I was horrified. Something went terribly wrong, in other words, right there in our streets in Minneapolis. And we all had an obligation not to vilify the cops, but to make sure something like this doesn't happen again anywhere. Now, something like this, something went terribly wrong on January 6th as well. And as a nation, we have an obligation to be looking to heal the country by addressing the grievances of many millions of voters rather than lumping all of them in with a tiny minority of idiots who did something terrible on January 6th. This is common sense. I'm going to close then just with an obvious observation. We all need to call on media and people in politics to stop this. Don't trigger and gaslight millions for political advantage. Don't do that. Address the issue head on. Just see what happened. And ask yourself, why is CNN allowed to shout fire in the crowded theaters? Which is obviously a recipe for anarchy and chaos in this country. Why are so few concerned about the truth of what's going to happen to our cities, to our country? This needs to stop before our whole country turns into Minneapolis, a place from which right now law-abiding Americans, black and white, Democrat and Republican, are fleeing for their lives, and certainly fleeing for the lives of their businesses, which can't survive in the middle of the terror zone, the hellish the hellish reality of Minneapolis in 2021. Is this how you want to live? Is this the America you want to live in? You want your children to grow up in? You want to grow old in? I don't think it is. So then we all have an obligation, no matter where you're from, what your political persuasion is, whatever your skin color is, to tell CNN and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all these people, Joe Biden, to knock it the hell off and grow up, because people's lives are at stake now. The life of our country is at stake now. This is dangerous, and it threatens the future for us all. I'm Michael Matt for Remnant TV. Watch your backs out there, Americans, especially if you're conservative. And we'll see you next time.